Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Dre Show, everyone. It is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025. Thanks for tuning into the show today. We're halfway through this week, and you're in the best place to get all the relevant and groundbreaking news here in the United States and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Don't forget to hit that like button, follow the show, hit that notification tab, and share it with as many people as possible to help get the truth out. Thank each and every one of you for doing that. I can see that you're sharing the show, and I appreciate you. Let's get ready, though, for the best hour that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. You know, it's Constitution Day in America. Our beloved Constitution. The day where we remember that we have one of the greatest documents governing us of probably history, I'd have to say. Created in Philadelphia's Independence Hall, which I now call Philadelphia for obvious reasons. Ratified in 1788. The first implementation of it was under George Washington when he took office in 1789. And for the past 236 years, it's been our governing structure and framework for how our government is supposed to be operating. Now, the only constitution in the world that limits what our government can do to the citizenry to ensure our rights to life, to liberty, to the pursuit of happiness. Despite the attacks from both parties over the years, it has allowed the United States to become the freest, the most successful civilization humankind has ever seen. Not perfect, not a utopia, but it's the freest nation on the planet. I think we can all be grateful for that, unless, of course, we have some deranged lunatic leftists listening to the program today, but I think that's only common sense. So be thankful that we have such a great governing document today, folks. Very, very important, as we can imagine. A week ago today, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and we are still trying to figure out what is going on here. I don't buy any of this nonsense with these texts. I'm not even going to go over it because it makes me so angry that they think we're so stupid that we believe that some random generic text messages they seem to be posting online, with no substance, by the way, is accurate. I don't buy it for 1 second. I'm not even going to delve into that today. I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to talk about, though, is this New York Post article. Barack Obama decries Charlie Kirk's horrific murder as nation hits inflection point, of which he calls a threat to us all. Do you ever notice Obama sticks his ugly face into all these certain types of cultural issues all the time? Why can't he just retire to Martha's Vineyard and shut the hell up? Seriously. We never saw this before. Do you ever see so many presidents just constantly, when something happens, they just rear their face into the conflict and start antagonizing people, as what we're seeing right now? But the former president insists that the nation is at an inflection point following the Charlie Kirk assassination, as the Democrat, in his first public remarks on the shooting, called the conservative commentator's violent death a tragedy, regardless of his views. Well, at least he got that right for once. He went on to say, even if you think they're quote-unquote on the other side of the argument, that's a threat to all of us, and we have to be clear and forthright and condemn it. The 44th president said that he believes the country is facing a precipitous rise in political violence and accused it always has to get shifted, doesn't it? It accused President Trump and members of his administration of fueling some sharp political divisions. This comes from the great divider himself, Barack Obama. Yep. Remember when Trayvon Martin died? My son would look like Trayvon. When his friend, I forgot the professor's name, arrested at his house. He was breaking in, Someone of the neighbors, I believe, called the police. They came to his house. He mouthed off the police officers, got arrested, and then Obama said the police acted stupidly. This coming from the guy that said, use whatever bathroom you want, pushing the entire LGBTQ XYZ movement. Yeah. Never had this type of division in your administration? I doubt it. I doubt it. Look what he did to race relations in this country. That was all Obama. Absolutely. 100%. What else did he say here? It says, but I'll say this. Those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't empowering them. I wasn't putting the weight of the United States government behind them. Okay, Barry. Okay. We know that he was spying on the incoming Trump administration as well. Not extremist, huh? Think of all those things that began to take off. The BLM movement took off under Barack Obama. We have the rise of Antifa. We know this. The apology tours that he took for the United States. We didn't have a leader. We had chaos. When we have the weight of the United States government behind extremist views, we've got a problem. Wow, Barry. Fantastic. I mean, I'm so glad we had your leadership for 8 years. Where would we be without it? Yep, there he is, Obama. Anytime he can make himself relevant, he has to do it. Yep, there we go. Now, instead of just condemning this as a normal human being would, he has to always take a jab at the Trump administration. The worst president of all time, until, of course, Joe Biden took office. I guess Obama can celebrate that, right? But this is what we have from our top leadership. The one who led the Democratic Party comes out and has to say that the Trump administration is taking extremist views on what? What are their extremist views? I'd like to know what they are. Why didn't he list some? This is the party that calls Donald Trump a fascist, and the members of his party constantly in the media, on Capitol Hill, in our institutions, constantly call out violence. And we just sit here and listen to this crap? It's unbelievable. It really is. Now, we just had Jasmine, what's her name? Crockett? Yeah. Jasmine Crockett. She was on CNN, right? She was on the Commies News Network. This is what she said. She said, but when we look at it, she's referring to Kirk's assassination, please tell me who is fostering this gun culture, right? I mean, the reality is that the average person on the left probably couldn't make a shot from 200 yards because they haven't been playing with assault rifles since they were a little kid. Like, that is just the reality of how people on the left typically work. Really? Again, an outrageous statement by an outrageous moron. And what does she mean by gun culture, by the way? Does she mean gun violence? Does she mean belief in the Second Amendment? What is she talking about? She doesn't even know herself. She read the cue card somebody gave her right before this moronic interview and just spewed it out loud. Gun culture. What is gun culture? The belief in self-defense, the belief in the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The belief that if the government becomes too tyrannical, you have a right to defend yourself against that tyranny? Does she believe that? Or is she talking about strictly gun violence, murder? What we saw last Wednesday. Is that what she's talking about? Those are two totally separate things. And the left can't seem to decipher between the two, which again makes me sick to my stomach when I see this. People lying and saying that Charlie advocated for what happened to him. Absolutely asinine. You want to know where gun culture in terms of murder exists, ladies and gentlemen? In blue cities across our nation. Just take a look at them every weekend. Chicago, 40, 50, 58, 60 people shot on a given weekend. Always several killed. And that's in a Democratic blue city where it's tough to get a gun. All these blue cities and blue states. Look at D.C., for God's sakes. Our nation's capital. The murder capital of the world. Of any other country. It's unbelievable. Blows everyone else out of proportion. when we look at these things. And then they get mad at Donald Trump when he sends in the National Guard, which he had the right to. It's a federal city. He had the right to do that, and it's helped clean up crime in the city. You see all these things, carjackings, larceny, robbery, murder, everything's dropping precipitously. And the left is mad about this. They're mad. So again, why is Jasmine Crockett talking about who's fostering this gun culture? It's your party. It's always been your party. Don't believe me? Oh, let's take a listen, shall we, folks?
Know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized right up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
When he came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers, he said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Imagine that, though. Oh, there's more. Don't worry. I'm going to finish playing it for you because I want you to hear this. Who has a problem with gun culture? I'm looking at the screen right now. It's Snoop Dogg with a prop gun and a mannequin of Donald Trump dressed up like a clown, and he's got a gun pointed at him, and out of the end of the barrel, it has the word bang. Who rides on gun culture, Jasmine? Is anyone on the right putting this type of rhetoric out? Anyone saying this, encouraging that on the news media? Have you heard anyone on Fox calling to kill somebody? Or OAN? Or Newsmax? You haven't, because it doesn't happen. She hasn't quite grasped it yet. But this is the culture they create. And they're shocked when it happens. They're shocked when they see a school shooter, but they don't give a damn about the underlying issues, the mental illness, much of which they push, by the way. They foment it. They like it. Let's keep listening.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there. Pull it up.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
There we go. That's just a taste. That's just a teaser of all the things that are being said. But you had people on the news media actively calling to put a bullet in Donald Trump. And they wonder why gun violence is a thing in this country. You can't make this nonsense up, folks. They create the problems. They create the hysteria. They create the indoctrination. Well, they pretend to villainize guns. They didn't do anything to stop gun crime at all. They wish upon taking your gun rights, though, which, again, is illegal in our wonderful Constitution. Shall not be infringed. They do whatever they can to try to smear the Second Amendment. And they try to lament on the fact that you're a gun owner. You're a free gun owner. which you have every right to be. And that somehow by you doing that, you are a bad person. Not only bad people own firearms, but they never talk about their involvement in this. Look at blue cities across America and you tell me, gun violence a problem? Gun culture a problem? I was watching Laura Ingraham just last week. She had an independent journalist. I think his name is Nick Sorter, if I'm not mistaken. And he went and hung around with a gang in Chicago. And they all had illegal firearms with them. Gun violence. Gun culture. We're not talking about people legally obtaining firearms and using them at a range. We are talking about people illegally obtaining firearms. They use it for violence constantly. And that's why you see what you see in these major cities. St. Louis, Memphis, Detroit, Baltimore, New York City, L.A. Just goes on and on and on. And nobody seems to say anything about it. Nothing. Did they ever come out when these things are happening and say, we've got to put an end to this gun violence, we've got to put these criminals away? They never say anything like that. It's just the Republicans. And then, of course, they come out and accuse Trump of fomenting lies and, of course, trying to exacerbate his executive orders, all these things. They don't want to fix the problem. They like the problem. The problem gives them the ploy and the leeway to create more gun control, to start to strip you of your Second Amendment rights, which you have every right to have. Charlie Kirk was right to say it too, by the way. Just because there is evil out there does not mean you have the right to disarm people. Law-abiding citizens. So the whole narrative stops with Jasmine Crockett. I mean, that's just moronic. And look at the way she views this, too. She says, because we haven't had guns since we were kids. Well, allegedly, again, if we're going to go with the Tyler Robinson narrative, allegedly, he did have guns. That's what they're saying. We don't know if it's true or not. We still don't have the ballistics of this bullet, of this gun. Yet they're steaming full ahead with these text message narrative, as always. By the way, look at this one. This is in PJ Media. You're going to laugh when you hear this. Biden's FBI targeted Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. And these schmuck Democrats have the audacity to tell Kash Patel that he's weaponizing the FBI. So Chuck Grassley reminded Kash Patel of the FBI's recent political weaponization, pointing directly at an operation known as Arctic Frost. He went on to say, at your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost, which was the FBI's case opened and approved by anti-Trump FBI agents, Thibault, I believe is how you say his name. Arctic Frost then became Jackass Smith's elector case against then citizen Trump and now President Trump. Now, according to Grassley, newly obtained records show that Arctic Frost's probe was far broader than previously known. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some of these examples of the group that Christopher Wray and the FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney Generals Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of this Operation Arctic Frost. And one of them on that group was Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. Imagine that. A guy who goes into college campuses, just speaks to people. He doesn't force people to speak with him. Invites people to have a conversation with him on these college campuses. And it's under investigation by the Biden Department of Justice. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. This is all about crippling any type of Republican political infrastructure in the United States. They were looking specifically at groups that were, again, using traditional values, speaking about conservative values. This is what they were looking at. Now, in other words, Arctic frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was used entirely to dismantle all of it. To take down Charlie Kirk. To take down the RNC. To take down these Republican attorney generals that sue the Biden administration. All these things. And, of course, anything pro-Donald Trump. This is what they did. This is what they did with your taxpayer dollars. Can you believe it? I can. Grassley went on, though. He said, so today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public for the entire country to see, and I hope a lot of people are interested in seeing what the government can do when the various agencies have a political agenda. Pretty good. This is the exact definition of weaponization of lawfare. Going after your political opponents because they view you as a threat. Not a actual threat, but because they view you as a threat politically. And it's as clear as mud just simply reading this article right now. But this is what they did. What a massive scandal this is. And who's gone to jail for this? Nobody. I keep thinking about all this nonsense we've been put up with. We see Adam Schiff getting away with lying on his mortgage rates and contracts and what have you. Look what Letitia James just did. Look what Joe and Hunter Biden and the whole family did. Has anyone gone to jail? No, of course not. It's all forgotten, all gone. No, nothing happens to anybody. They simply get away with it. What about Meritless Garland? Anything happen to him? He puts an exact FBI raid into Mar-a-Lago with the intent to shoot to kill when they raided Mar-a-Lago under this ridiculous documents case that went absolutely nowhere. How about anyone that prosecuted Donald Trump with these phony felonies? 91 of them. Anyone go to jail? No, of course not. Why would they? Republicans have got to start waking up. This is what I'm trying to tell you right now. If you do not hold the left accountable for anything, they will continue to do it to you. They'll continue these phony impeachments. They'll continue these phony felony case charges. They will smear you. I'm happy to see Donald Trump is going after the New York Times right now, as he ought to. We're not talking about free speech. We're talking about fomenting absolute lies. Doing things that are... What happened to Obama? For the wiretaps that he put on the Trump administration. Did anything happen? No, nothing. Nothing, of course. No, we have to listen to him about violence fomenting in America because he's such a great sterling example of peace and unity in the United States. It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I almost can't believe it, but actually I can. I can believe it because it's so ridiculous. All right, so as of late, we've been talking about what's been happening with Charlie Kirk, and rightfully so. But I want to talk about what's happening in our foreign policy because a lot's going on, and I haven't really been talking with you about some of the things that have recently been happening geopolitically. So I do want to go over what happened actually last Wednesday. And, of course, everything was overshadowed by the assassination. Rightfully so, I think. But we got to keep an eye on things that are happening, even in times of chaos and mourning and what have you. But last Wednesday, we had Russian drones were being flown over Poland. And Scott Ritter on Judge Ed Napolitano's show gave an excellent analysis of this. So I wanted to kind of break down some of the things that he was saying. And where do we go from here on this? So, for some of you that may know, last week we were told by the press that Russia was now deploying drones over Poland. This was to give the impression, of course, that the neocons were correct and that Russia doesn't just want Ukraine, but of course wants to reestablish the old Soviet Union. Putin is a warmonger, a dictator, a killer, part of the kleptocracy, right? All those things, all those pejoratives they like to use about President Putin. Now, first of all, if President Putin did want to take these colonial ambitions further, he wouldn't be wasting his time with President Trump in Alaska. I just want to share that with you. He wouldn't do that. The sad reality is that Russia, like the U.S., would like to see this peace. But we don't sell it like that to the public. They sell him as a dictator. They sell him as a warmonger. Someone who wants to take over Europe. Someone who wants to take over and become Catherine the Great again. These are all the things they say about Putin. Every time. He's a thug. He's a killer. He's this or that. Anytime I've seen the Russians, whether they're speaking or they're meeting with other people, they do it with complete diplomacy. Every time. And yet it's never reported that way. At all. Of course, now when Donald Trump wants to meet with them, he's enabling Putin. They don't see the bigger picture, which is peace. I do believe that Vladimir Putin wants peace. I believe Donald Trump wants peace, too. As I said to you, though, it's got to be Zelensky that accepts the peace offers that are presented to him. That's his job. That's what he has to do. And if he doesn't do that, we're not going to see any type of peace, which is why you see the war continuing on. And again, Russia is winning this war, but Russia isn't concerned if the war ends tomorrow or 5 years from now. They don't care. It's a war of attrition. This is the war that Russia fights, for anyone that studies history. They're completely fine with it. They'll move forward with it. And again, if it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. Ends tomorrow, and they get what they want, they're happy with it. Now, what happened last week was drones appeared to be attack drones. Sadly, they were styrofoam decoy drones that Russia actually uses in their own airspace and have used it over Ukraine. And the drones greatly resemble these Hesha Shahid 136 drones that are used by the Iranians. And Russia also uses them, calling them the Geranium 2s, is what they're called, or Geranium 2s. Now, the Foreign Ministry of Defense of Belarus stated that they located these drones over their airspace, but believe them to be redirected by electronic warfare. So, not the intention of the Russian military is what we all need to understand about this. They are used to simply deplete any type of Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile defense resources. That's what they're used for. They throw them up in the air. You have Ukraine attack them, and then they send in the real missiles when the other ones are hitting these phony little styrofoam drones. That's how they use it. And we saw the same thing with Iran, by the way. Iran would send in their old missiles. They didn't really care if they got destroyed. And then their real missiles they wanted used would come in and they would penetrate the Iron Dome. That's what we saw during the 12-day war. It's very similar tactics in terms of the war. That's not what was happening here, though. They were not sending in attack drones. So it is likely, though, that Ukraine has taken these drones that, again, have been destroyed. They put them back together. They fixed them. They put them back into circulation, into the airspace, going towards Poland, likely in a coordinated effort, I would have to say, with the Polish government, and invoke the response that you would expect. You now have Poland now that's invoking Article 4 of NATO's treaty. And what Article 4 states, essentially, is that it allows the member states to consult with each other when their territorial integrity, political independence, or security is then threatened. So see how this foments into something much, much worse. Now, largely, this is done to create this type of panic, I'd have to say, this hysteria that we're seeing, to cause NATO and other countries to react. What does that mean? Well, Article 5 says that when one nation is attacked, that means every nation of NATO is attacked. So they all respond in kind. That's how the alliance is supposed to work. So you see how this could obviously get out of control very, very quickly, should it have been taken seriously. I'm glad to tell you, though, that it hasn't really been taken seriously. We saw Poland sending troops to their border, which borders the western border of Ukraine. We saw Britain and Germany sending 2 fighter jets, and France sending 3, which, again, is a joke. What are you going to take on the Russian Air Force with, how many do they have? What? Seven jets? Really? That's it? You think you're going to do that? It's a joke. Sending 7 jets to Poland to help defend them against Russian drones? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, Scott Ritter has stated that in Ukraine's hope, and of course their effort in all this, to help train NATO countries into taking out these Russian drones, and of course with this fake and phony panic that they've created, hopefully what they want is Ukraine to have NATO come into Western Ukraine and help work with them to take down these drones, should NATO ever see this as an absolute threat to these NATO alliances. That's what they're hoping for. So again, it's pushing the war further. It's escalating the war further. And, we talked about, peace with this Alaska summit. We wanted peace. Peace has not yet come because these nations simply don't want it to end. Ukraine doesn't want it to end. They want this to keep going. They want the money flow. They want the cash flow into the country. And they will push it as long as they receive that money. That's the sad truth about it. One of the other problems we have, and I mentioned this earlier, was the neocon aspect of all of this. When you have people like Keith Kellogg getting up and again pushing this narrative that Ukraine is winning, Ukraine is deterring Russia, it's not looking good for Russia, this gets in the minds of people. Now, he's an advisor to the president, Donald Trump. Now, I don't think Trump believes that Ukraine is winning this conflict. I highly doubt it. I don't know how Trump is briefed. I don't know. But all the information I've been given, we are seeing Ukraine is desperately losing this war. There's not a chance in hell they are going to win this war. I don't say that with any happiness, but this is the reality of the situation. Yet, here we have a general getting up and saying something like this.
If he was winning, he'd be in Kyiv. If he was winning, he'd be west of the Dnieper River. If he was winning, he'd be on Odessa. If he was winning, he would have changed the government. Russia is, in fact, losing this war. Now, they may make movements and say, so, well, they're advancing in the Donbass region and Donetsk. But if you consider advancing moving by meters, not miles, well, then, okay, that's successful. But at the cost that they're having, it's enormous. And I don't think people truly appreciate it. It's a number. But the numbers they have lost, when you're talking dead and wounded, well over 1 million, they left Afghanistan after losing 18,000. We left Vietnam after losing 65,000. They've lost over 1 million dead or wounded. These numbers are World War II level numbers when you think about it. They're stunning in the loss. And this is in their first line units that they came and tried to take Kyiv with a little over four years ago. Those first line units are gone. So they've gone through a second or a third or fourth iteration of wartime commanders. They're pulling tanks out of mothballs, out of museums, to put on the battle line. They can't operate in large movements because the Ukrainians will kill them.
Okay. So what you just heard was a bunch of complete nonsense. It's not based in any type of reality. There's no statistics that support this, by the way. And a head nod to Judge Andrew Napolitano for posting this as well. This is what's being spread out there. Now, if you're the average person and you're listening and you hear this from a general in the United States, you'd say, okay, Ukraine is in this fight. They're deterring Russia. Russia's not advancing like they ought to if they were winning. Why don't we help Ukraine? We don't want to see Russia expand. We don't want to see Ukrainians suffer. And this altruism gets created by this. Keep this in mind. The real numbers are as follows. Ukraine has 1.7 to 1.8 million dead and 3 million that are wounded. Forget the fact, too, that you have Ukrainians now trying to enter Poland to evade getting drafted into this war. And the reality of the Russian deaths is 150,000 Russians have died in this conflict, with 700,000 to 800,000 wounded. Those are much different numbers. Absolutely much different numbers. So we need to be realistic about this. That yes, Russia has taken casualties, but Ukraine's are far worse. And they're only going to continue to get worse as this war continues to go on. So, again, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how we stop this. We've put into motion the concept that we want peace. Donald Trump has met with both leaders. But Putin is not going to stop. He's not going to give back the Donbass. He's not going to give back Crimea or Zaporizhia. He's not going to do it. It's not going to happen. He's not giving up Kherson either. I mean, we have to be realistic about this. And if we can't win this conflict, we have to ask ourselves this. Why are we continuing to give money? Why are we doing this? Why are we funding these foreign wars for these nations to continue to kill one another? You cut the money line off, you cut the cash flow off, the war ends. The war cannot function without money. Now, the banking cartels love this because they're getting the money. They're printing out the currency. They're making interest on it. They love it. You know, a lot of people get rich off war. And the warmongers that you see coming on the air saying, we've got to do this for Ukraine. We've got to do this. I'm wearing my Ukraine flag on my lapel because I care so damn much. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Then you come to find out that some of these people sit on the boards of some of these military industrial complex companies that create this weaponry that's being sent abroad. So they're filling their pockets while the, Ukrainians die. It's unbelievable. It's very sad to see this. I was hoping peace would be a direct outcome of this, but we're seeing just the same old conflict time and time again. Very sad stuff. And again, the people that lose are both sides. Both sides lose in these wars. We're losing men from Ukraine. We're losing men from Russia, too. Now, segueing into what's happening with Israel and its seven-front war, you're also seeing people in the IDF dying every single day, too. It never ends. It just continues on. No end in sight. So now we have Israel, this is in the Trends Journal, by the way, launching this offensive now in Gaza again after it has been greenlit by Marco Rubio that went over there just the other day and made his little prayer to the Wailing Wall. Oh, yeah, him and Mike Huckabee. It's fantastic, isn't it? Did you ever see him praying in a church, by the way? No, I haven't either. But anyways, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel on Monday and reportedly gave him the green light for the ground invasion of Gaza City, which is expected to result in a substantial number of new civilian casualties and even worse humanitarian crisis within inside the enclave. Israel Katz, whom is the Israeli defense minister, evidently could hardly contain his excitement on Monday evening as IDF troops raze Gaza City and their latest atrocity unfolding for the entire world to see. In a statement saying that Gaza is burning, the IDF is striking the terror infrastructure with an iron fist. And of course, I mentioned to you, I believe it was early last week, I said to you that Netanyahu, when this war began, he said he wanted to take down every single high-rise building inside of Gaza. And that seems to be, he seems to be making good on that promise, because that's what we're seeing right now. He also said to the Times of Israel, we will not relent and we will not back down until the mission is complete. What does that mean? The mission is complete. Until Gaza is in complete ruins? Until all the Palestinians are gone? What does that mean exactly? We don't know what the end of the mission is. They were supposed to have a meeting in Doha. They bombed the building where the negotiators were. Right? They were able to penetrate over Iraqi airspace, of which we have control. Then they enter Qatar. And again, we have knowledge of the airspace inside Qatar. So let's think about this. We have airspace in these two countries. Israel sends its jets flying over to bomb this building where they know, probably because the Trump administration told them, where this meeting is supposed to take place. And of course, they bomb it and they kill several of these negotiators. Now, they didn't take out the top brass, but they took out some of these negotiators. I believe they killed a total of 3 to 5 people, if I'm not mistaken. Now, how would you, especially if you're inside Qatar, how would you go out and view this right now? Would you say that the United States and Israel are upholding their commitment to ceasefire negotiations, what they were supposed to be involved in? And yet they bomb a building in a sovereign nation? Again, we saw the exact same thing happen in Iran. We were supposed to be in talks with peace, with coming to a peace proposal. The proposal looked good. It was ready to be discussed and, of course, signed off on. And right at the last minute, what happens? Israel bombs them and kills the lead negotiator, Ali Shamkhani. Do you think Iran is going to come to the table again with Israel or the United States? I doubt it. Why would they? When their lives are being threatened. This is going on and on every single time there's some type of negotiation. All the negotiators are dead. And if you want an end to this war, let's say, just because I'm being generous right now, let's say that Netanyahu really did want these hostages coming home, right? I believe there's 12 living hostages left. Let's say he was decisive and ardent in getting these hostages to come home. Why would you kill the lead negotiators that are coming in here to speak with you? Why would you do that? It makes absolutely no sense. Unless, of course, you want this war to continue on, which we know, based on things that he's stated, that's exactly what he wants. That is the mission. And they're not going to back down until that mission is complete, until there's no Palestinians inside Gaza. That's what it all comes down to. Axios reported that Israel launched its offensive on the city on Monday, which is expected to increase the death toll and exacerbate the humanitarian catastrophe inside the enclave. Francesca Albanese, a UN expert on Palestinian rights, said that Israel is bombing using unconventional weapons, telling this to Reuters, stating that it is trying to forcibly evacuate Palestinians. This is the last piece of Gaza that needs to be rendered unlivable before advancing the ethnic cleansing of that piece of land. Well, we all know this. I've been telling you this for so long. This is exactly what they want. They want the Gaza Strip. They want this region. They don't want any Palestinians in it. And now it's the perfect time to come in and say simply, we can't coexist with the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip because they are run by terrorist organizations, which, by the way, Israel helped support in the very beginning, by the way. Just thought I'd share that part with you. We can't live with these people. Look what they've done to us. They threaten our national security. They threaten our existence as a people. It's the perfect narrative to bomb them into submission, to get rid of them, to expel them, to take more land that isn't theirs. And that is the idea of Greater Israel. And if you don't believe me, just go look it up. Yeah, go on Google, go on anything, go on any search engine you want, type in Greater Israel, and then type in Greater Israel badges that the IDF is currently wearing. And it's interesting, when this bombing took place, I think it was Iran that told Qatar, they go, hey, you're next on this list, by the way. They want the land that Qatar has. They want the land that Kuwait has. They want part of Saudi Arabia, part of Iraq, Lebanon, most of Syria, parts of Turkey, all of Jordan. I mean, do these countries not understand what's going on here? And if they don't wake up, they're next. That's the way it's working right now. That's why you're seeing this 7-front war right now. And it's only going to continue to get worse as time goes on. So we see this atrocity taking place for the Palestinian people. Again, it had nothing to do with what happened on October 7th. Actions, of course, that I condemn wholeheartedly. But the idea that you're going to continue to kill innocent civilians, men, women, and children alike, is simply a violation of any type of law and international law. Intentionally bombing civilians, starving. Remember, they control everything that happens inside Gaza. They control the electricity, the water, the food. Forget the nonsense with some of these ridiculous influencers that go in from PragerU or bought off by PragerU or any of these other, conservative groups, by the way. They go in there, they stand in there with their stupid helmets on and their vests. They say, look, I'm standing in front of pallets of food. And I say, oh, that's good. Have you seen anyone occupying these? Is anyone eating? They can't show us that. They can't show us that. That's another reason why the journalists are getting killed, by the way, too. Just thought I'd share that with you, of course. And finally, the Trends Journal has long noted that since the Israel war began on October 2023, taking over Gaza as another settlement was the goal of Israel. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it goes, as we reported, President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said the land was very valuable waterfront property, and Donald Trump said it should be turned into a Riviera of the Middle East. Netanyahu, of course, benefits from the full support of the Trump administration. That's why Rubio was over there, too, to give the undying support of the Trump administration. By the way, this is in Just the News, says Arab states warn Israeli actions may have put an end to the ceasefire talks. That's what I agree with. And, of course, endanger the Abraham Accords. Yep, so the Arab states in this region are starting to wake up to this. And they're starting to realize, hey, we could be next here. We could be next. Now, some people are, rolling your eyes when you hear this. That's the truth of the matter. Now, the Israeli government is saying that these military actions are necessary to force Hamas to come back to the table. They had a meeting with them while there was an alleged ceasefire, and then they killed the people they're negotiating with. That's not going to make anybody too happy to want to meet with you. Some experts are saying now that the unilateral two-state solution pro-offered by some of the Western nations disincentivizes Hamas to come to the table. I don't think that's necessarily true. But Arab states are now warning that Israel's actions against Hamas in Qatar, right, that we saw in Doha, and plans to further annex lands in the Palestinian West Bank, which we're seeing right now. They're offering settlements in that region to start building, threaten to end ceasefire talks, and could even undermine President Trump's signature Abraham Accords. Yep. There it is. There it is. The Arab nations are starting to wake up, I think. I think that's what you're starting to see here. They're starting to say, we might be next. This greater Israel thing that's well out there, the information's out there if anyone wants to see it, is a real thing. Then you have to ask yourself, what does this have to do with self-defense at this point? When you're bombing a territory into ruins day in and day out. Originally, there was 2.4 million Palestinians. Now there's 1.9 million Palestinians. Over 60,000 we know are at least dead. The rest are missing right now, which I don't hold in high regards that we will find these people, by the way. The talks of they're all open about it. The talks of ethnic cleansing. The talks of Gaza becoming Jewish. They openly tell you what they want, if you listen. But this is what they want, and this is what they will likely get, so long as we're bankrolling them. Oh, by the way, the Tampa Free Press posted this. It says that Chicago Mayor Johnson, right, another sterling member of the Democratic Party, signs a right to protest as order as Trump administration targets the city. Yeah. It says here that Democratic Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who's done nothing for the city, by the way, just thought I'd share that, signed a sweeping executive order on Tuesday that seeks to fortify protest protections inside Chicago. Now, under Operation Midway Blitz, offered by the Trump administration in Chicago and across Illinois, targeting illegal aliens shielded by sanctuary state policies, right? You can thank J.B. Pritzker for that one. The right to protest order, which expands the city's protesting and protecting Chicago's initiative, directs the Chicago Police Department to uphold First Amendment rights in coordination with local activists even if federal agencies attempt to intervene. Boy, they love the First Amendment when it benefits them, doesn't it? Right? So what they're doing here, they are encouraging people to get out there to shout, to belittle, to harass, to accost these ICE agents that are coming in to follow federal law, to remove illegal alien threats, which many people in Chicago support, by the way. Most people don't understand that. They actually support this. They're actually mad about this. Watch any city hall meeting. You have people getting up every race, shouting at Brandon Johnson, saying, look, you're benefiting the illegal aliens over the citizens, which is making the city more unsafe. Forget about the crime stats in the city and the gun violence that Jasmine Crockett has no idea exists largely in blue cities in blue states. But Johnson went on to say that Chicago has been a civic center. A center of civic action. Excuse me. Biden moment. From the labor uprisings at Haymarket era to the civil rights movement, and today is no different. What the hell kind of nonsense is this? First of all, they're illegal aliens. That's number one. They have no right to be in this nation. They have no right to be in this nation at all. Now, yes, they have human rights, of course, but they don't have any rights to any of these other things. And the Trump administration is going in with warrants, by the way, right now, and arresting these people. They're detaining them. They are deporting them. And Brandon Johnson signs a law that people can get up and start protesting. Now, we got to ask ourselves, whose side are these people on, by the way? Are they on the side of the citizen or this side of the illegal alien? Who are the elected officials in the cities? Who are they? What side are they on? They're on the side of the illegal alien. Goes on to say the city of Chicago has proven time and time again that we can safeguard demonstrations of any size while protecting First Amendment rights. With this executive order, we affirm that Chicago will remain a place where democracy and freedom reign. Oh, yeah, right. Freedom reign. Freedom reign, right? Yeah. You can do anything for the illegal alien that has no right to be here. All 40 to 50 million of them. Yep, they can stay here. You can you protest those federal agents in the streets. That's fantastic. Now, there's a way to protest if you're that out of it and, back the illegal alien, right? That push down the wages for usually low-skilled workers or take the jobs outright. But he says, today we proclaim that all residents and visitors, who are these visitors? People coming in that are paid for by Soros and company? Can peacefully assemble, petition their government. See, they don't come in peaceful, though. That's a problem. They take over streets. They destroy business fronts. They spray paint. They block traffic. They attack the ICE agents. They get in their faces. All these people, by the way, that do that should be arrested on the spot. Absolutely. Look at this. Can peacefully assemble, petition their government, and speak freely in our country. Yeah, except the fact that they're illegal aliens. Now, they can go to City Hall and stand there with a sign that says that. I have no problem with that. Brandon Johnson can handle that one. This executive action is about proactive. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Being proactive. There you go. Look at this. In response to the increasingly reckless federal government. What an idiot. What a moron this guy is. Does he not understand that Donald Trump is simply following the law? That there's something called immigration reform laws that are put into place? That all these laws that he's following are passed by Congress and signed into law by a U.S. sitting president? Is this guy this thick? I mean, he must be. He's got to be. What an absolute moron. Okay. All right. Got a couple of minutes left. Let's go over. I'm going to touch base with this one just really quickly, then we'll move on to this next article about the economy. This in Breitbart says Japan's exports to the United States continue to fall, hit by Trump's tariffs. So what we're seeing now is because of these tariffs, you're seeing less and less exports from Japan coming to the United States. And that number has now plummeted by 13.8% in August, which has been compared to the same from the previous month. marking the 5th straight month of declines as auto exports were hit by President Trump's tariffs. You know, I told you these tariffs are not a good thing. I told you that when you start slapping tariffs on, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50%, things like this, you're going to start hurting business after a while. It's got to catch up to you at some point. So marking the 5th straight month of declines. This is what we're seeing right now. Compared to the same month the previous year, auto exports from Japan were hit by these tariffs. The Finance Ministry data released Wednesday showed that the rate of drop in exports to the United States compared to the previous year worsened from a 10.1% slip in July. U.S. tariffs on Japanese automobiles and auto parts decreased from 27.5%, the amount Trump initially levied, to 15% this week. But that's still higher than the original 2.5%. Yep. Wednesday's data reflected the month of August. When the tariffs were higher, Japan's overall exports were little changed, but slipping by 0.01% as exports grew into Europe and into the Middle East. So what does all this mean? It simply means people are not going to be doing business if they're losing money constantly. And I understand the point, the idea, right? You want people to buy American goods. So we put a tariff on and make it more competitive. And if they can't acclimate or they can't send as much, they're going to be buying from Americans, right? We understand that. The problem is we don't produce all this in the United States. We don't do that. A lot of these, these automobile parts and or what have you come from Mexico, come from Japan, come from China. And again, if we're not getting these exports in, these imports that come into the country, we're going to start seeing a problem with all this. And again, the higher the tariff, the more the price that you're going to be paying in the grocery store or the market or what have you. Now, the Wall Street Journal has this really interesting article up. I want to touch base with it before we end today's show. It says we have a 2-speed economy and low-income Americans are giving up the gains. What does that mean exactly? Well, it says for high earners and many older Americans, the economy looks robust right now, right? These are the people that have been in business for the past 30, 40, 50 years, right? They are still spending like gangbusters. Their 401ks, their homes have soared in value over the years, right? But for many others, this momentum is either stalled or reversed. The big wage growth experienced by low-income workers, especially during the pandemic, has simply petered out. Those workers are curbing their spending and in some cases are struggling to even find jobs. I read to you a couple weeks ago. Someone just gets out of college, they're an engineer, they apply to 900 jobs, they get 2 calls back. So what opportunities are we starting to see? Where are these investments that Donald Trump shared with us in the beginning half of the year, right? Japan's going to do this. South Korea's going to do this. They had all these people come up. They're going to, they're spending billions of dollars in the United States. Why aren't we seeing that make its way into the United States economy yet? Where are these jobs? We're seeing unemployment for Black Americans, young Americans jumping. Home prices and rents sharply rising. Now, if you already owned your home and have paid it off, a decade or 2 ago, as many of these higher earners, these older Americans, it's not a problem for you. You've already owned your home, your property. But for people just starting out, younger Americans, just getting out of college, they're hit with these massive college debt bills that they have to pay. They've got to pay an exorbitant amount in rent. And now in the cost of groceries, we have insurance for automobiles. Everything is up by a lot, while the wages seem to be stagnant. The dividend fortunes of the rich and the poor in the United States are like an old story. Yet in recent years, workers on the low end of the spectrum began modestly narrowing this gap. And by the way, I just want to say one thing here. The whole thing about COVID, right? Remember the economy was doing great under the first Trump administration. We saw, for the first time, we saw wages beginning to rise. And then again, COVID hit, and we saw the biggest massive transfer of wealth in this country. The rich got much richer, and of course, the people on the bottom, right, the lower income earners or the people that are new to the markets, they got the brunt of the COVID lockdowns, the shutdown of these businesses, the people that lost their businesses. This is a massive, massive problem. And again, now this divide is widening yet again. For much of the past few years, wages for the bottom third of U.S. earners grew at a faster rate for the top third. This is what the Bank of America data shows us. But since the start of this year, the top earners in this country have yet again pulled ahead. So, we sit here, we talk about these things, we want the economy to grow. But at the same time, what we're starting to see again is the people at the top, the people that control most of the wealth, they're the ones that make out with it. And we're starting to see that again and again and again. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed the show today. I hope you'll share with some friends. I hope you will keep your house in order, as I always tell you to do. Storing up that food, the ammo, water, anything you need to be self-sufficient. Guns, ammo, fuel, medicines. Make sure you have everything in order. Everything starts at the home. If you can change your home for the better, you will definitely make sure you start to see a change in yourself and in your community. God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you tomorrow on the next Marco DeRay Show. Until then, be good. Stay busy. God bless you.